The sky over Hiroshima was a perfect cloudless blue. It was the kind of morning that promised a humid, heavy heat. High above, a silver speck glinted in the sunlight. It looked small, harmless, just a B-29 bomber on a weather run, or so the people on the ground thought. If you believe that history should never be forgotten, please take a moment to subscribe. We are here to keep these stories alive. Tsutomu Yamaguchi looked up at that silver speck. He didn't know it yet, but he was staring at the end of the world. He heard the hum of the engines. Then he saw two small parachutes drift away from the plane. They looked like toys dropping from the heavens. He stood there, watching, confused. Then the sky tore apart. It was August 6th, 1945. It was 8:15 in the morning. Tsutomu was 29 years old. He was a naval engineer for Mitsubishi Heavy Industries. He was a husband. He was a father. And for the last 3 months, he had been working in Hiroshima on a temporary assignment. Today was supposed to be a good day. It was his last day in the city. His bags were packed. His train ticket was in his pocket. He was going home to his wife and infant son in Nagasaki. He was finally going home. He had already been on his way to the station when he realized he had forgotten his hanko, his official travel stamp. He couldn't leave without it. So he had turned back. He was walking along the edge of a potato patch, just under 2 miles from the city center, when the world turned white. It wasn't just light. It was a magnesium flare that filled the entire universe. It erased the shadows. It erased the colors. For a split second, there was no sound, just a blinding, silent flash that felt like a camera shutter snapping inside his brain. His instincts took over. He had been trained for air raids. He dove into a small irrigation ditch. He pressed his thumbs into his ears. He closed his eyes. Then the shock wave hit. It picked him up like a dry leaf. It tossed him into the air. He spun, helpless, tumbling through the scalding wind. He slammed into the ground in the middle of the potato patch. Dust and debris buried him. The air was instantly sucked out of his lungs. He passed out. When he opened his eyes, it was night. But it wasn't night. It was still morning. The sun had simply been blotted out by a massive rolling cloud of dust and smoke. The air was thick with ash. It fell like gray snow. He tried to stand, but his legs were shaking. He looked down at his arms. The skin was burned raw. His face felt like it was on fire. His eardrums were ruptured. He couldn't hear the fires roaring around him, but he could feel the heat. He looked toward the city center. It was gone. The buildings were gone. The streets were gone. There was only a pillar of fire rising into the black sky. Tsutomu wrote in his diary, "I didn't know what had happened. I thought the sun had fallen from the sky." He stumbled toward the shipyard. He needed to find his co-workers. The world around him was a nightmare. People were walking like ghosts. Their clothes were burned off. Their skin hung from their bodies in sheets. They held their arms out in front of them, trying to keep the raw flesh from touching their sides. No one screamed. They didn't have the energy to scream. It was a procession of the dead who hadn't died yet. Tsutomu found 2 of his colleagues. They were alive, but badly burned. They spent the night in an air raid shelter. The city burned around them. The river was choked with corpses. People had run to the water to escape the heat, and they had boiled there. "We have to move," Tsutomu said. His voice was a rasp. "We can't," one colleague replied. "Look at us." If we stay, we die. The train. We have to get to the train. The next morning, they made their way to the station. The bridge was broken, the rails twisted like licorice. But they heard a rumor. A train was running from a station outside the blast zone. It was going to Nagasaki. To get there, they had to cross the river. The bridge was gone. The only way across was a terrifying human bridge. The river was so full of bodies that they had jammed together, creating a grotesque raft of the dead. Tsutomu stepped onto the bodies. He tried not to look at the faces. He tried not to think about who they were. He just focused on his feet. Step, step, step. He reached the other side. He reached the train. It was packed with the wounded, but he squeezed in. He sat on the floor, surrounded by the smell of burnt flesh and infection. The train rattled into motion. He was alive. He was leaving hell. He was going to the one place where he would be safe. He was going to Nagasaki. He arrived on the morning of August 8th. He went straight to the hospital to get his burns treated. The doctor wrapped him in bandages. He looked like a mummy. He finally reached his home. His wife saw him and screamed. She thought he was a ghost. She thought he was a demon sent to haunt her. "It's me," he whispered. "I'm home." She cried. She touched his bandaged face. He held his son. He was safe. But Tsutomu Yamaguchi was a man of duty. The next morning, August 9th, despite his burns, despite the trauma, he got up. He put on his work clothes. He walked to the Mitsubishi office in Nagasaki. He walked into the office. His boss looked at him in horror. Tsutomu was covered in bandages. He could barely stand. "Yamaguchi," the boss asked, "what are you doing here?" "I had to report," Tsutomu said. "I have to tell you what happened in Hiroshima." The boss sat behind his desk. He listened as Tsutomu described the flash, the single bomb, the city that vanished in a second, the river of bodies. The boss shook his head. He looked at Tsutomu with pity, but also with disbelief. "You are an engineer, Yamaguchi," the boss said. "You know the laws of physics. One bomb? One bomb cannot destroy a whole city. You are hallucinating from the shock." "It's true," Tsutomu insisted. The sky turned white. The metal melted. "Sit down," the boss said. "You're crazy." At that exact moment, the air raid sirens began to wail. Tsutomu knew that sound. It was the sound of death. It was 11:02 a.m. Through the office window, a white light flooded the room. It was the same light, the same magnesium flare, the same silent horror. "Get down!" Tsutomu screamed. He dropped to the floor. The shock wave hit the building. Windows shattered. The ceiling collapsed. Glass and concrete rained down on them. Desks were overturned. The Fat Man plutonium bomb had detonated over Nagasaki. Tsutomu lay in the rubble. His bandages had been torn off. His fresh burns were exposed to the dirty air. He looked up. The ceiling was gone. Above him, the familiar mushroom cloud was rising, churning with purple and black smoke. He thought he was dead. He thought he was in hell. "I thought the mushroom cloud had followed me from Hiroshima," he later said. "I thought it was hunting me." He checked his body. No new injuries. The reinforced concrete of the stairwell had shielded him from the thermal ray. He was alive. Again. He crawled out of the ruins of the office. The view was sickeningly familiar. Nagasaki was burning. The same gray ash fell from the sky. The same walking ghosts wandered the streets. He ran. He didn't care about the pain. He ran toward his home. He had to find his wife and son. He found his house. It was rubble, a pile of wood and stone. "Sumako!" he screamed. "Katsutoshi!" Silence. Then movement. His wife emerged from a shelter nearby. She was holding their son. They were covered in dust, but they were alive. When she saw him, she fell to her knees. She saw his bandages were gone. She saw the raw skin. "You were right," she wept. "You were right." Tsutomu collapsed. The adrenaline finally ran out. For the next week, they lived in a shelter near the ruins. Tsutomu's condition worsened. His hair began to fall out in clumps. His gums bled constantly. His skin turned purple. He vomited water every time he drank. It was radiation poisoning. The doctors didn't have a name for it yet. They didn't know how to treat it. They just watched him waste away. His family prepared for his funeral. But Tsutomu refused to die. He lay in the darkness, listening to the groans of the dying around him. He thought about the river in Hiroshima. He thought about the boss who called him crazy. He thought about the 2 sons he had seen in 3 days. He whispered to the darkness, "Not yet. I am not finished." And somehow his body fought back. The war ended. Japan surrendered. The American occupation began. Tsutomu slowly regained his strength. His hair grew back. His burns scarred over. He went back to work. He became a translator for the American forces. He taught school. He returned to engineering at Mitsubishi. He tried to live a normal life. He tried to forget. For decades, he didn't speak about it. He didn't want the label. In Japan, the survivors were called hibakusha, explosion-affected people. They faced discrimination. People thought the radiation was contagious. People wouldn't hire them. People wouldn't marry them. So Tsutomu stayed quiet. He raised his family. He wrote poetry. But the memories never left. The image of the corpse river. The sound of the silence. Decades later, in his 80s, he decided to speak. He realized that his survival was not just luck. It was a responsibility. "I have eaten the poison," he told an interviewer, "so I must speak." He applied for official recognition. There were many people who experienced both bombings, perhaps as many as 160. But the government records were a mess. In 2009, the Japanese government officially certified Tsutomu Yamaguchi as a Niju Hibakusha, a double bombing survivor. He is the only person officially recognized by the government to have survived both blasts. Archival records confirm his presence in both cities within the 2-mile radius of Ground Zero. It is a statistical impossibility, a miracle of timing and geography. He lived to be 93 years old. He passed away in 2010. Before he died, he traveled to the United Nations. He spoke to audiences in New York. He pleaded for nuclear disarmament. He used his scarred body as proof. If you want more forgotten stories of real people who lived through World War II, subscribe. This channel exists to bring their voices back. Tsutomu Yamaguchi saw the end of the world twice. He walked through nuclear fire twice. And he survived to tell us one thing. The only people who should be allowed to govern countries with nuclear weapons, he said, are mothers who are still nursing their babies. Man created the weapon that could destroy the world. But man also possesses the spirit that can survive it. Tsutomu was that spirit.